tips and advice for anybody that kind of is inspired by your work, you know, whether they're into metal, whether they're into synthwave, whether they're into post-punk, which are of course genres that you work with, you know, greatly and have done over the past few records. What would be your advice and tips for people making music during this time, you know, and struggling with motivation, you know, obviously moving away from alcohol and things like that, but what would be your key tips for anybody who's creating music in this time and being creative, but maybe going through those challenges as well?
I don't know. It's actually a really good time to create because, you know, there's a lot of extra time of being alone and away from the world. So I don't really usually have blocks. I mean, if I do, I just push through them. So I guess my advice would just be, if it's not happening, don't try and force it. Step away and try to focus on some other things that inspire you. You know, if that's exercise or a loved one or whatever. You know, just it's hard because I think when you put too much pressure on yourself, art doesn't really happen as it should.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting, man. A lot of people don't always say that. You know, don't always say take a step back. Actually, don't force it if it's not happening. So it's an interesting perspective to get. Actually, I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
One of the things I really like about your work, man, and you know, kind of ever since I kind of became aware of it to now, is the artwork and the videos and the visual aspect of what you do with GosT. And I wanted to kind of ask you, you know, how important is that visual aspect? Obviously, it's not, you know, it's not entirely about that. You obviously got some banging tunes that people do love. But in terms of the visual aspect of it, you know, particularly the artwork for Rites and Love and Reverence is, you know, is quite eye-catching. It's beautiful imagery. How important is that imagery for you and for the kind of you know, towards GosT's output? You know, how much impact do you want the image to have?
I mean, personally, it's really important. I was, you know, into visual arts younger, before I got into music. So personally, I've just always been into it. And then growing up in the time period I did, when you would just be at a record store getting a CD or something, the album artwork was, you know, pretty important because sometimes you just pick up a record because it looked cool. Which would be a letdown sometimes, but I mean, it's important to me personally. I've never really, you know, I don't think I ever put any intentional focus on it being really eye-catching or anything. It's just, I guess, what appeals to me personally is what ends up on the front of the record.
Absolutely. And you've talked a lot about, certainly in the PR for the record, there's obviously a lot around witchcraft and its imagery. And I kind of wanted to ask you, you know, when you first started thinking about this record and what you wanted to do with it, what you wanted to achieve, when did that kind of focus point of witchcraft, the imagery associated with it, when did that sort of kind of start for you?
It was pretty much from the beginning. I don't remember it not being what I wanted to write about. So it's, you know, it was during the height of the pandemic when I was writing most of this. So it's basically like we're watching modern witch trials happen on social media and things like that. So it just really made sense to me, you know, as a social commentary on the world around us right now and how we treat each other online, and there's no consequences. And so, yeah, it was always just in my mind that that's what the lyrical content was going to be about, and kind of what inspired a lot of the record. So
absolutely, man, absolutely. And outside of the record itself, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about success as a theme, because, you know, you've experienced a lot of success in terms of streams, in terms of hits on YouTube, and obviously a lot of fans all over the world, some cracking tours, some amazing tours within the metal genre, within the synthwave genre, and outside of that as well. And so you will have a different definition of success to somebody else, because, like I say, you've achieved quite a lot in your career. And I wanted to ask you, you know, straight up, what does success mean to you as a person, but also as an artist?
I don't know. You know, I never thought I would have achieved any of this with this project. So it means the world to me. I feel like I've done things that, you know, if it all falls apart tomorrow, I'll be able to live the rest of my life without any regret. Because a lot of my friends, you know, that quit music before I did, they're just like, how'd you do it? And they have regrets. And I'm just like, man, I just kept doing it. I didn't give up. So I mean, that's what it means to me. I've met a lot of beautiful people through this, and seen places that I never dreamed of seeing. So, I mean, music's meant so much to me for so long, so it just means that much more to me now, that it's taken me around the world and allowed me to, express myself to so many people, and, get fans and do interviews and things like this, things that I never dreamed would happen. So it's amazing.
Absolutely. And again, sort of to reference that success, how do you look back on the early stuff, like Behemoth and the records that you kind of came out with, and you were sort of, the sort of resurgence of Synthwave, or the birth of Synthwave, and then of course a lot, you were on, worldwide tours with all these artists from different genres, and it's got you to this point where you're releasing this record now, and it's exciting. It's a really exciting time, or certainly that's what it looks like from the outside. So how do you look back at the early stuff you did and the kind of first work now at this point in your career? Do you remember it fondly, or do you look at it as like, that was a point I needed to do to get to where I am as a progression point? You know what I mean?
I look at it fondly. It's a little bit hazier.
Yeah.
I was a little younger, so I was drinking more back then, and staying up later, 4 a.m. producing. When now I do it during the daytime now. Back then I would never have done that. It just didn't feel right. So yeah, it's definitely. Those are the albums that got me to where I am. So it's definitely still going to be a part of my sound some way, and will always be very meaningful for me. I mean. Possessor performed is probably did the best as far as like charting and stuff like that. So I'll always, have fond memories of that. It's just, it'd be nice if people would stop asking me to do those records again.
Yeah, of course, man. Of course, you always get that. I guess is people trying to recreate the early stuff. It's a bit like asking Trent Reznor to do the Downward Spiral again, or something like that, and then people are like,
"Yeah, it's not gonna happen."
It's a different phase. You're in a different phase in your life, I guess, and I guess that's going on to my question about a couple of the tracks that people can hear. Burning Time, Bound by the Horror. There's a lot of sort of post punk in that, and a little bit of the industrial vibe. And I kind of wanted to know, where is that where your head's at sonically now? Of course, there's going to be the old school influences as well, but there seems to be a lot more reflection, particularly in Burning Time. There's a lot more of you in it, and I kind of wanted to know where your head was at sonically. Is it more within that post-punk and industrial sphere, or where do you see it?
I've got a little bit more freedom to do whatever I want now.
Yeah. And
just, out of desperation, to keep creating and stay inspired in my creativity, I'm just adding as many elements as I can now, because it just feels kind of like a natural progression. And, oh shit, I lost my thought.
Don't worry. So you were talking about natural progression, yeah?
And it's just, I don't know, like Burning Time, like you said, it's a lot more of me, and it really is. I just, I feel like this album as a whole is a lot more, I guess, progressive and personal. And
yeah.
I'm trying to write better songs, if that makes sense. Not just, banging electronic tracks. I'm trying to write actual fucking songs now. Yeah. At least a few on each record from here on out, probably.
Absolutely, man. I think you've answered my next question, but I'll get your thoughts on it anyway, because there might be some more to it. In terms of the record as a whole, looking at where you've come from and where you are now, how would you say this record is pushing you in new ways as an artist? Is it pushing you to be more you, to look inside and kind of look at your influences and what you want to do versus what, say, some fans want you to do? How is this record, and how do you see it pushing you in new ways?
Well, using actual instrumentation, using guitar on some tracks. I haven't played guitar like seriously in a long time since I started this project.
Yeah.
I didn't have a guitar early on. And so that was definitely challenging. And I mean, it's challenging to keep making music and making music that, doesn't lose the passion of the early stuff, but still, but it has new things that don't, I don't know, it's difficult because you can't please everyone. And I guess this that's just gonna be how it is for me. I think from here on out, I'm not sure how much more I'll progress from this sound because it's I've kind of started on the last record heading into this direction, but I don't really know.
Yeah,
we'll just have to see how it goes.
Yeah, the future is unwritten, as they say. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I guess the last couple of questions. Like I said, you have talked about the fans and different fan responses, and I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on the people that have stuck with you, whether you've made a synthwave record or started to do post-punk, the fans that have stuck with you and believed in you all this time. What is your message for those people that have supported you and will continue to support you as you go forward?
Fucking love you guys.
Fair enough.
I mean, no, it's amazing to have people that understand, that seem to understand why I do what I do, and that seems to be why they stick with me. I've noticed some of the people that stick with me don't necessarily love everything that I do until they've listened to it a little bit and it grows on them. So, yeah, I mean, just thank you for allowing me that freedom and not being so rigid on, what you expect one of your favorite artists to do. Because, all the bands that I've liked in my life, you mentioned 9 Inch Nails. If you look at his more recent stuff and then look at Downward Spiral, they're completely different. So there's a lot of growth that happens there, and the fans grow too. Everybody changes. So when they grow with you and they stay with you and they stay ardent and really into what you're doing, and they defend you on YouTube against the naysayers, like, that's amazing. I love it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And that's a beautiful message. In terms of things you've got, obviously we've got the record coming up, releases really soon. But in terms of other stuff, is there anything you want to plug? Anything you want to promote? Obviously there's people that know you and people that love you, but people that have yet to find GosT and yet to discover you. So where can people get a hold of your stuff? What is there anything that you're working on outside of the record that you want to plug, for example?
I don't know. I'm working on a winter tour here in the U.S. I don't know if it's going to happen. And then, of course, the UK and the rest of Europe, hopefully next year. We'll see how everything goes. I have a side project that I do with my wife called Burnt Offerings. You can check that out if there's a couple tracks available. We're going to try and do more. So when there's not a GosT coming out, there may be some of that coming out. Working on a couple video game soundtracks that I can't really talk about, but there'll be some more music like that, which will probably be more electronic than the new stuff. So you like the old GosT and you hate the new GosT. You can listen to the video game stuff because it'll probably sound a lot like the older stuff.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And in terms of being over in the UK, obviously a lot of people will be looking forward to you coming back. Do you have any particular good memories and things that you love about the UK that you're happy to share, that you can share?
Yeah, I love the UK. I love Manchester specifically. Every time I'm there, I have a good time. I bought a really good pair of boots the last time I was there.
Nice.
But I just like how the city, it's like a university town, right?
Yeah, it is.
It feels kind of youthful, and it just has a lot of energy. And the shows in the UK always have a lot of energy. It reminds me a lot of shows here back at home, which makes sense. We're all cut from the same cloth, sort of, a long time ago.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, James, honestly, thank you so much for your time today, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you for...
Of course, man. Thanks so much.
No problem, dude. All right, take it easy, man. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye.